very, very happy to see so many friends around the table ready to talk about road safety and particularly how do we unlock finance for road safety as we deal with accelerating decarbonization in the transport sector. So a very, very important question, one that everyone in the road safety community asked, right? Where is the financing coming? And to do that, I have a wonderful panel today and a special speaker that is joining us from Wales. So I think we will get started with Karina Ruta. If you can get me, Karina, there you go, Karina.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Karina. And if you could please introduce yourself very briefly for our audience. Thank you.
Yes, of course. So my name is Karina Ruta. I work for the Welsh Government and I'm placed in the Welsh Local Government Association, representing the 22 local authorities here in Wales. I work in transport policy and over the last few years I have been working on the implementation of the 20-mile-an-hour default speed limit in Wales. And I am also currently working on a new road safety strategy for Wales.
That is wonderful. Welcome, Karina. And now we are ready for your presentation. Karina is going to show us all the great work that Wales has been doing and what is the impact that all that work has had. So we are ready, Karina. Thank you.
Thank you. I will share my screen now and you can tell me if you can see it, I hope.
Not yet, but it should be coming up. Yes, we can see your screen. And if you could, yeah, now
Yes,
it's in presentation mode. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. So I will give you a brief presentation on the implementation of 20 miles an hour here in Wales as a default speed limit for built-up areas. So that is on streets where pedestrians and cyclists mix with motorised vehicles in a frequent and planned manner. So this was, the legislation came into force last September. And Wales obviously followed what many cities and towns in Europe have done already for quite some time. And indeed, many cities and authorities in England have done too. Spain introduced a 30-kilometre-an-hour limit on its urban roads in 2021, and Scotland and Ireland are also looking at similar options. There is a list of legislation and strategies underpinning the introduction of 20 mile an hour, but I would like to highlight three of them. So the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act 2015 in Wales is about improving the social, economic, environmental and cultural well-being of Wales. It makes public bodies in Wales think more about the long term, work better with people and communities and take a more joined up approach. Secondly, there is the Llwybr Newydd, which means new path. This is Wales's transport strategy, which was published in 2021, and it sets out Welsh Government's vision for how our transport system can help us putting us on a pathway to creating a more prosperous, green and equal society with an accessible, sustainable and efficient transport system. And finally, of course, Net Zero Wales. Since declaring a climate emergency in 2019, responding to advice from the Climate Change Committee, Wales has legislated to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050. I won't go into all the details here, but a brief history to explain to you how Wales did this. So in 2017, the Wales Act devolved the setting of national speed limits for restricted roads to Welsh ministers. After that, in 2019, a task force group was formed to look at how to actually implement this change. In 2022, the Senedd, our parliament, passed legislation, and as I said, it came into force on the 17th of September last year. So why change the speed limit? The main case, of course, the main reason is for road safety. In 2022, police forces in Wales recorded a total of 3,315 road collisions, and over half of those happened on 30-mile-an-hour roads. So in the distance, a 20-mile-an-hour car can stop. A 30-mile-an-hour car, a car traveling at 30 miles an hour will still be doing 24 miles an hour. A recent public health study here in Wales estimated that the 20-mile-an-hour default speed limit in Wales could result every year in 40% fewer collisions, 6 to 10 lives saved, and 1,200 to 2,000 people avoiding injury. And also savings of up to 92 million a year in casualty prevention savings. But the case for change is obviously about much more than just casualty savings. This is a much broader public health intervention, hoping to bring both physical and mental health benefits. So why change? Traffic speed is one of the greatest barriers, really, to people feeling able and feeling safe to walk or cycle in their communities. So this is all about enabling walking and cycling to be the most natural mode of choice for short everyday journeys and improving the health and well-being of people now and for future generations. There are very broad, wide economic, health and social benefits that will come with this. And it is hoped that obviously we will create more livable communities with healthier people. To the implementation, as you can imagine, obviously implementing this change required a lot of courage and strong leadership from politicians, and the public reaction and the ensuing debate, in particular on social media, has been vitriolic, very divisive and highly politicized. The Senedd received the biggest ever petition to rescind the law. Timing is difficult. There is never an ideal time to introduce something like this, and there will always be people saying that the money should have been used for something else instead. Obviously, ideally, policies that are seen to take away freedoms from the public should be paired with giving something. The problem is that the seemingly negative impacts of I have to drive slower are instantaneous and individual, yet the positive impacts of the modal shift, the health benefits, community cohesion are less visible and obvious to the individual in the short term. But obviously behavior change is a process, it's not an event, and we are really but at the beginning of it here in Wales. Behavior change will hopefully be achieved over time through further community engagement, speed management measures, working together with the police on enforcement and communication. This is what we have used here in Wales. It's called, for Goodwin and Owen, the Goodwin curve. It was originally used for road pricing acceptability and how it varies with time. Obviously, there has clearly been, we have seen this dip, and it can be applied maybe to speed limits as well. But we are hopeful, and the most recent polling shows that the public opinion is starting to move in the right direction. Some of the behavioral insights from the implementation of this is that clearly most people support slower speeds on their streets, but not on the roads they need to drive through. And also that the way we think a 20-mile-an-hour or a 30-mile-an-hour street should look and feel for the driver does need to accommodate for safe walking and cycling as well. Drivers often contradict their support for 20-mile-an-hour limits, so there's an intention-action gap. And also, often drivers speed due to social pressure and acceptability of speeding. There very clearly is a silent majority that doesn't speak out. And what has been here termed the pluralistic ignorance as well of people thinking that they are in the minority when they necessarily aren't. Monitoring and evaluation, very importantly, there's quite a important framework that has been put in place to be able to monitor and evaluate this in Wales for over a period of at least 5 years. I won't go into the detail, but I will give you the links to these if you're interested to see. But obviously this would be looking at speeds, journey time reliability, but also air quality, driver and vehicle interaction, and also the wider health benefits, the modal shift, and the impact on the local economy. So a regulatory impact assessment measuring the economic costs and an integrated impact assessment looking at the social, cultural well-being and impacts on equality were undertaken for introducing this legislation. The economic cost was calculated with and without the value of time monetized to reflect the forthcoming Welsh Government policy transport appraisal guidance, which was published earlier this year, which removes the requirement for benefit cost ratios for many projects in favor of an integrated well-being appraisal and puts greater emphasis on well-being and environment. There's a £4.5 billion forecast of an economic disbenefit of this introduction over 30 years, but obviously in a way that is a theoretical figure. The actual cost so far has been around £33 million. So the only negative economic impact results from placing a value of time on very small increases in journey time. So it was found that 95% of the forecast increases in travel time were between 0 and 2 minutes over 30 years. So without the added journey time, the economic benefits have been conservatively assessed at 1.9 billion. And these largely result from savings, obviously, in the casualties and the health benefits of more active travel in walking and cycling. But some potentially significant areas of economic benefit from reduced noise pollution, increased local retail spending and land values, and increased community cohesion were not monetized for the regulatory impact assessment, what will hopefully be looked at over time in the evaluation of this. So there is here in Wales a debate about those small time savings to individuals and cost benefit analysis more in general in transport, as I said, and this is now reflected in Welsh Government policy in the recently published updated Welsh transport appraisal guidance. So what next? Obviously, as I said, it is a journey. It doesn't end here. There will need to be more education, engagement and enforcement. This week, the 4 police forces here in Wales have started enforcing the speed limit. And also going forward on roads where speeds remain high, we will look at introducing low-cost speed management measures. This doesn't necessarily mean traditional speed humps, but things like removing the centre line, reducing the carriageway width. And just briefly to end, really, I would like to say that we are working on a new road safety strategy, which will hopefully be published later this year. It will be a strategy very much based on Vision Zero, so the acceptance that no loss of life is morally and ethically acceptable, and on the safe system. So it will be about abandoning the traditional economic model where road safety is provided at reasonable cost, and the traditional transport model in which safety must necessarily be balanced against mobility. I have added some useful links if this presentation can be shared. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much. I look very much forward to hearing from all of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Karina. We have a full room now, and they are all very happy and very excited with the work that you have been doing in Wales. So if you can stay with us, because I know that at the time of questions, we might have some questions for you as well. So thank you. And now we are going to pass to our panel. And the first thing that I would like to ask you is to briefly introduce yourselves. So Charlotte, would you like to start?
Thank you very much, Claudia. My name is Charlotte McLean-Llapo. I'm a Global Disability Advisor at the World Bank Group, and just have to say that in terms of this subject matter, yes, it's important from a professional point of view, but being a survivor myself of a road crash incident injury, I know from a lived experience what it means. So I bring that perspective to the table.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Jacob?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jacob Smith. I'm a regional leader of the Global Youth Coalition for Road Safety, managed by Youth for Road Safety. I'm also a car crash survivor, where we are mobilizing thousands of young people across the world to focus on sustainable mobility.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Najwa?
Hi, everybody. My name is Najwa. I'm a program manager at the Global Designing Cities Initiative. I work under the Bloomberg Initiative for Global Road Safety, and I'll talk a little bit about the work that I'm managing in Ecuador in 2 cities, which is one of 2 of 13 cities that we're working on focusing on road safety around the world.
Thank you very much. Najwa, Benasser?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Benasser Boulajou. I'm Regional Director of National Road Safety Agency in the Kingdom of Morocco. I am also the chair of ARSO, African Road Safety Observatory, and I'm also the president of PRI, which is Prévention Routière Internationale. My main reason to be here is to advertise the 4th Global Ministerial Meeting will be held in Morocco. And if I success after this meeting to have all of you to confirm to be with me, to be with us and to be together in Marrakesh, I will success in this way. Thank you very much.
Very much looking forward to the ministerial conference.
Yeah,
Thank you for the invitation, Benasser. And Avi?
Thank you very much, Claudia. I'm Avi Silverman. I'm the Deputy Director of the FIA Foundation. We're a long-serving philanthropy in road safety and sustainable mobility globally. Delighted to be here and also hoping that we'll all see you in Marrakesh at the Global Ministerial on Road Safety coming up as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Abby. All right, so let's get started with our conversation. And if we use speed, this is only the one place where we are going to use it because we're going to have to more or less in 30 minutes go through the panel so that we can have a little time for our audience. So Charlotte, I would like to start with you. And you are the Global Lead for Disability at the World Bank. So I want for you to reflect on road safety and what are the health and social considerations for an inclusive and safe mobility.
Well, fantastic question, Claudia. Thank you very much. So I think it's really important that we recognize that both health and social considerations are essential when we talk about safer mobility for all individuals. And this is important for a number of reasons. One is that it provides equitable access, and so access to work, access to education, access to healthcare services. So having that is very, very important. But I wanted to maybe just highlight, I think, 5 areas that I see as particularly pertinent in relation to health and social considerations. The one is the issue around physical health, and I think that was mentioned by the earlier speaker. We know that access to transportation and safe mobility is actually good for your physical health. Similarly, we know that it's good for your mental health, and that it enables people to integrate, it enables people to travel from one place to the other. It fosters cohesion and inclusion, and breaks down silos of people being felt that they're excluded from spaces. So there's a very strong mental health component that comes with this. I think it goes without saying that environmental health is also a key tenet for thinking about this, and again relates to things like air pollution, emissions, and just general congestion. And so I think it's important that we think about environmental health. But I just wanted to focus a bit on a component or an element that is related to social inclusion and equity, because inclusive and safer mobility really does help promote social equity and inclusion. Again, it's about making sure that transportation is accessible for all. It's about ensuring that people have access to opportunities, to livelihoods, to recreational facilities. And in order for that to happen, it needs to be affordable. It needs to be accessible. So the whole issue around universal access and universal design becomes a fundamental aspect of thinking about it. And I think, again, it contributes significantly to promoting social equity. And then I think the last point that I would like to make in relation to that is the broader kind of chapeau of safety and accessibility. And there to think about how do we ensure by addressing safety and accessibility challenges in transportation, we ensure that the voices of all users are at the table. And I'm sure we'll come back to that point later on. So in conclusion, I just would like to say that I think health and social considerations are an integral part of promoting safe mobility. And that in doing so, we need to recognize that users are very different and use transportation for different reasons. And all of those factors should be brought into consideration.
Excellent point. Thank you very much, Charlotte. And can agree more with you that access is incredibly important for economic development. The main question really is why, if road safety is such an important enabler for economic development, for sustainable transport, for environmental issues, why we are not seeing the level of investment that we want. And with that, I want to pass to Jacob, because you represent the young people, the people that, will inherit all this system that we have right now. So how are the young people feeling about this system? Is it an inclusive system? Is it a safe system? Please.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I first want to recognize that young people have been the social architects of change for history. Young people have been involved in transforming absolutely our built environment, our transportation system, the way we move and the way we breathe. And they should be transforming the future of our transportation system to ensure that it is actually sustainable. At Yours, we believe that young people are the experts of their own lived experience. And ultimately, if we're trying to transform our transportation system, we should be looking at young people first. They have the expertise, the ideas, and the voices to design our streets that put people first in order to achieve a sustainable urban transformation. I think the question lies throughout this entire conference is like, how are young people fueling, financing our transportation system? And so I wanted to provide a few examples of our young people across the globe who are actually engaging in systemic, meaningful engagement. They're engaged in decision-making processes. They're engaged with their city governments and their municipalities to ensure that the youth voices are centered. I'll start off with in Colombia. Marfiella hosted social media live stream campaigns, activity booths, crosswalk flash mobs, and collected citizen demands to ensure that they produced a pedestrian manifesto. And what was the result of this manifesto? 9 out of 10 demands were included in their city's 2035 strategic plan that had financial backing behind it. And so that's a prime example of how young people are elevating their lived experiences to ensure that our transformation system is actually equitable, inclusive, and sustainable. Secondly, in Mexico, Fernando, which is probably the most exciting one that I love to share about, had a tactical urbanism installation. Included murals, crosswalks, road signs, and speed calming measures, which we all know are proven interventions for saving lives. The corridor's pedestrian cyclist outcomes used that demonstration case by their local government. So their local government specifically noted that they wanted to continue this work, financially contribute this work to ensure that they include that education within community members, but also ensure that those installations were permanent. Ultimately, young people have a right to sustainable and healthy environments. It has been included in the Human Rights Council resolution, as well as the Climate and Health Declaration. And so, as you mentioned, young people were born into a system that is not serving them well. And so in order for us to transform our system, we have to allow young people to be that fueling agent for actually transforming our system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacob. And so inspiring, the examples that you are giving. And as you, Charlotte, was saying before, so important to have the voices of every single user, and the young generation that is already so much involved with how the transport system is designed and how you want it to be designed, right? It's very interesting that young people are not asking for higher speeds. They are asking for pedestrian safety, which tells us so much of what they need, right? Why pushing them into getting a car, into having such an expensive article in their lives when they can move around in a different way, not get used to the behavior of using a private vehicle. So it is very, very good, the work that you are doing, and such good examples. So with that, I want to turn to Avi, because I know you've been reflecting and working on the topic of finance. We need really more focus, more light into what is happening, what are the projects that are being financed, and what else can we do to increase the finance? So can you tell us what are the thoughts that you have around that topic?
Yeah, thank you very much, Claudia. Yeah, it's a really important question, and as with so many things in life, there are sort of two ways of looking at it, but you can look at it. I'm going to focus on the positive kind of experience of all of this, which is that, you know, you've got the kind of global targets in place that are very, very important and very ambitious. The SDG targets and there are good examples of progress that is being made towards those targets, including in low and middle income countries globally. The kind of, if you look at the global status report, WHO, the overall picture is that, you know, it's kind of a sort of flatlining picture of progress towards the target, but there are places where if the investment and the financing is unlocked, progress actually is being made. And we've got some very good examples. I won't go into lots of detail because we've not got a lot of time, but we've got a couple of really good examples of World Bank and MDB financed projects with partners of the FIA foundations as well, where into the design phase is going some really effective work to protect vulnerable road users. There's financing being dedicated to that. There's some great research that a lot of our partners have done showing huge cost benefit, kind of 8-to-1 benefit to cost ratios when you look at the kind of infrastructure investment that can be made, or even higher than that in some cases. And this is actually being done and being delivered. There's a partner of ours, the Amend NGO, that's working on upwards of 7 projects across countries in sub-Saharan Africa, really showing that it can be done. But the kind of difficult end of that is sustaining it and the intensity of work that's needed, particularly when, you know, capacity and expertise is really needs to be further developed in many countries, and that often is the key. It's finding the financing and support that is catalytic, that can really build and develop the capacity and expertise. When it's done and when it's done effectively, there's some really good results, but it's a question of getting that done at far greater levels across the board. Just finally, just to say very quickly, we've got an agenda that we're getting together for the Marrakesh Ministerial that I know Benasser will talk about, life support, looking at what needs to be done in terms of really concerted efforts between governments and the MDBs themselves and the partners that have the expertise able to really build this capacity to develop and deliver the solutions that's needed to reach those targets. And it's not all doom and gloom. There are good areas of progress, but it's a question of really finding the additional support for all of that and delivering on it in the next few years.
Thank you very much, Avin. That's so exciting that the FIA Foundation is already looking into it and has a report that we can start reviewing and working on it and reflecting on it. So that is really very good. And let's move to the ministerial conference, Benazir. We are all very excited to join you in Marrakesh. And I know that the question on financing road safety is at the core of what you are planning in Marrakesh. So can you tell us a little bit what is your thinking there?
Thank you, Claudia. Yes, first of all, maybe the reason with I am here is we cannot miss like this event, TT24, to talk about Global Ministerial Conference on Road Safety will be held in Marrakesh next year. And it will be exactly between 18 and 20 of February next year in Marrakesh. We are talking about the fourth one. That means until now we will organize the fourth one after Moscow 29. Second one was in Brasilia in 2015. The third one was in Stockholm in 2020, and the next one will be in Morocco. That means the first time when we will have this global conference in one country from the south, in one Arabic and African countries. That means we want to be able to be the voice of all developing countries to raise this issue at a global level. And one of them, now we established what we call high-level committee for road safety. We had our first meeting in Geneva last December, and we will have another one in April this year, in 26 exactly. And it's under discussion. I mean, all topics and issue we can discuss is under discussion within this high-level committee. But for sure, we don't have the right, I mean, to miss this meeting, because it's the only moment where we will have ministers in charge of road safety. But there is some ideas raised until now, like maybe to have some panel session, some ministerial panel session for ministers of health, but also ministers of urbanization, and also ministers in charge of road safety, because it's depend on countries. Sometimes it's minister of transport, and sometimes infrastructure, and so on, maybe interior. But after the discussion, we are thinking to organize also one ministerial session for Ministry of Finance. I think even if you can have the best strategy and the best action plan in the world, if you don't have money to implement the action plan, that means you cannot, reach your goals. And for sure, we are trying and we are discussing with the stakeholders, and I hope maybe with the World Bank and all other banks, maybe we can come in Marrakesh with some sound proposal for countries to see how can we help them maybe to promote road safety and to invest in road safety. I think regarding the safe system approach, we cannot continue to blame only road user. They have the main responsibility, but as organizer, as responsible, as the manager of the system, we have our responsibility. And I think we have to show the main pillar we can use to mobilize, to improve road safety, and one of them is financing. So I hope that we can success on this way. I know we are in contact with my friend Saeed and other colleagues here in the World Bank, and to see how can we come with some really concrete proposal to improve and to help countries, mainly countries from the south, to improve the road safety. If you look to the last report of WHO, we can learn that 10 countries succeed to decrease the number of fatalities by more than 50%. And 35 countries, they decrease between 30 and 49%. That means it is possible to decrease the road safety. So we have to show this experience. We have to show this kind of best practices, and to convince maybe all stakeholders that it is possible. And I hope we can success in this way. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Benazir. This is really fantastic to start, seeing what you want to do during the ministerial conference. I love this statement that you just made. It is possible. When the political will is there, we can save lives. And I think, this second idea of intersectoriality is very important. We just heard that in the morning in the plenary session, where not only the Vice President of the World Bank, Jürgen Vogel, but also the Minister of Transport from Chile, they both were saying exactly the same thing, that we need to break silos in order to be able to gain all these results that we need. So at the ministerial conference, inviting ministers of finance, that will be amazing. Just having them understanding the first cause of death for children and young people are traffic crashes. And how can we lose those young people in our economies? Not only unethical, but also terrible thing for our economic growth. Thank you very much, Benacer. It is possible. So now I'm going to go to Najwa, because I really admire the work that GDCI have been doing in Ecuador. And I want for you to tell us how the country, and particularly the city of Quito, is investing. So, Najwa.
Thank you so much, Claudia. So, yeah, Quito has a lot of really great examples of how it's unlocking funding and putting it towards road safety. But I really wanted to highlight one of those initiatives, which I think is a great example of starting at a very localized level, measuring the impact, and really using this to unlock investments to scale up fully into a program. So that initiative is, sounds very simple. It's implementing pedestrian crossings at grade, but that's to replace pedestrian bridges. And these are normally on arterial roads, which have always, of course, catered to the private car. And we heard yesterday from a colleague that's in Nairobi that, this is a global phenomenon. The data shows that pedestrian bridges harm pedestrians more than they help them. Maybe they're initially built in areas where there's not a lot of built up areas, and maybe it's more rural, but with urbanization and, very busy land uses and dense pedestrian areas, the context doesn't make sense anymore. And these arterial roads are cutting through areas that should have very vibrant street life. And so the city of Quito has recognized this, and with the political will and with just really understanding the context, they expressed interest in the removal of these types of bridges to replace them with at-grade crossings. But they did face some backlash and some confusion from local residents. And so it's not just cities that need to be to understand that this perception that pedestrian bridges make us safer. It doesn't just need to change with the city, but also with local residents. And so there's something called Pedestrians Day in Quito. And so that's where GDCI partnered with the city for Pedestrians Day. And we organized a pop-up project just to show, the benefits of having at-grade crossings and why pedestrian bridges are really not very useful. And so the first site that was selected was Universidad Central. It was selected for the launch because it was near a major university. There's a BRT station, there's a metro station, there's a market, there's cycling infrastructure nearby. It just kind of had all the elements, and it was a very busy, high-speed arterial road. And so at this site, we learned that, of course, pedestrian bridges increase the travel time for everybody. They also increase the speeds of vehicles because we've lifted the pedestrians above. There's also a direct correlation between the location of the pedestrian bridge and where crashes are happening. And that's because, at this site, only 38% of people were actually using the pedestrian bridge. Instead, they're running across the street. And there are fences. We know that cities like to put fences and people still climb over them because they prefer to do that. There's different reasons people don't use pedestrian bridges. There's a fear of being robbed on the bridges, in particular in Quito. It's not accessible, of course. People were observed carrying their strollers or their bikes or, other things across the bridge. Plus, the cost to implement a bridge is 20 times greater than just implementing a pedestrian crossing. And it's 11 times greater than implementing a crossing with a traffic signal. So these kind of interventions are more cost efficient. So in the pop-up, what we did was we rolled out a red carpet over the crossing, and it was called Pedestrian Kings and Queens Day. People wore crowns, they were guided across, they were kind of told, how much faster, they timed how much faster they could cross that way than on the bridge. And through the surveys, there was a 90%, satisfaction and acceptance of using the crosswalk instead of the bridge, and a 214% increase in safe crossing. So this, of course, helped having the media to help us push these things and circulate and show the impact. And then our recommendations, of course, were to implement this permanently. And it had kind of a trickle effect to redesign the whole area. So with removing the bridge, we had the opportunity to implement a signal, to add crossings, to add a connection to a cycle lane that was on an adjacent street. And it kind of allows you to redevelop with traffic calming for the whole area. And the last thing I'll say is, with the success, showing the success and the reception of the community, the Cruza Salvo program was established to scale this up to many other pedestrian bridges around the city. And it's worth noting that, GDCI funded the pop-up day, but the city fully funded the demolition of the bridge, the whole street transformation project, the crossing, and we're hoping that this extends to the next neighborhoods as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Najwa, for sharing that example with us. And it is groundbreaking. You might be thinking, it's just add great pedestrian crossing. How special is that? It is incredibly special. In the work that we do with the support of Bloomberg Philanthropies, we have seen that in all arterial roads is where we have the majority of deaths. And why? Because most of them cannot cross that road safely. It has become very densified. There are markets, there are schools, there are housing there, and people just cannot cross the street. And then they are pointed out, as Benazir saying, as, ignorance, because they cannot go and cross to the pedestrian crossing. The pedestrian crossing is a kilometer away. And we are hoping that that person that needs to walk and that needs to take mass transportation, that is poor, walks 1 kilometer and then back again to their destination. So the work that Quito has done and the investment that Quito has done is really something that we want to see more and more in different cities around the world. So that is really wonderful to see. Next to me, I have the honor to have the Vice Minister of Armenia, the Transport Vice Minister of Armenia. So if you allow me, Minister, to just ask you very briefly, if you can tell us what are the investments, or maybe how difficult it is to make investments in road safety right now in Armenia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, we also start to develop the road safety strategy. We never have this experience, highlighting the priorities in doing investments, attracting specific knowledge, and first time for Armenia, we will proceed with road safety audit. So we committed to define and establish safe approach system. But what's difficult for us as a road authority and Ministry of Infrastructure is that there isn't enough understanding and broader view on what is a safe approach in a governmental level. And it's coming the issue understanding about investment. So it's always a challenge for many countries as well as for Armenia. And for that, first of all, we start to assess the economic impact. There's a huge social impact under road safety. However, we starting to deal with economic impact and start to estimate the cost, what we lose, and cost of what we're bearing. And it was support me to convince in front of Minister of Finance that the investment might be prevent even gain country economically. There is there is a long-term journey that a lot of efforts that government have to undertake to resolve the issue. There's a good performer countries. I very much supported your idea, and many countries have to follow their experience. It's critical for us. And there's a lack of capacity overall in the country. So it's also an issue we're facing right now. And we're voicing the importance of road safety. But it seems that society is not quite ready. There is an idea to start national campaigns and engage as much people as possible, and government, NGOs, influencers. We want all of them to call and to schools, universities, everyone to have specific role and speak about and voice about road safety. It's gonna be our life system, our changes and transformation to save a life. It's a priority to save a life. This is a mission. This is long-term vision of government. Yes.
Thank you very much, Vice Minister. And sorry, I got you a little bit on surprise, but having you close to me, I couldn't miss the opportunity. Thank you very much. All right, with that, I want to turn to my audience and see if you have any questions for our panelists. Bronwyn, please.
Hi, Bronwyn Thornton, Walk 21 Foundation. Fantastic conversations. I love talking about safety, and promoting active mobility is the same job, and the sustainability as well. I love hearing the Welsh example. Thank you so much for bringing that to the meeting. I have a question about a resource. We know about taking out pedestrian bridges. There's a degree of investment in taking them out. Has somebody documented the full cost of putting them in and taking them out, so that we can argue against putting them in the first place? And we know that obviously street level is better, but is there somewhere we can go and point at that and grab that and take it with us to the next argument?
Nashwa?
So I don't know if there's an official report. I just got some numbers from the Quito municipality that we worked with. So it costs $200,000 in Quito to implement a new bridge, and then $4,000 a year to maintain. And then to remove the bridge is about 15,000, depending on how big it was. In our case, it was around 8, but they're saying the average is 15 to remove. To implement a pedestrian crossing with a traffic light is $18,000. Without a traffic light, it will be much less.
Incredible. So we can do it. It is possible. Please, if you can quickly introduce yourself.
Yes, Tom Bishop from Amend. I have a question for Karina. I know that the 20-mile-an-hour policy was implemented at around the time that the First Minister was coming to the end of his tenure. I wonder if that was chance or that was deliberate, because he realized the political backlash that would be received.
Thank you. Karina?
Yes, it's interesting that you should mention that because we have our new First Minister has just been sworn in today. So I mean, I don't think it was on purpose. The previous First Minister had always said that he would step down when he turned 70. So that was something that everybody knew. I think obviously in the media, some people might have wanted to portray it in that sense. But it is true, the previous First Minister was very invested in this change and bringing about this change. It was not only in the party's manifesto, but also in his personal manifesto. But I think certainly it has been a difficult time for him and the backlash, but it was known that he was going to step back anyway.
Very good. Thank you very much. Abby?
Good afternoon. My name is Abhimanyu Prakash from the Global Designing Cities Initiative. A comment and a question. So we heard from many examples about doing pop-ups or demonstration projects when it comes to road safety interventions or active mobility projects like a cycle corridor. But cities are not asking BRT systems or metro systems for pilots. They get implemented. Pedestrian bridges, flyovers get implemented. So I'm wondering if there is also some kind of a study done in any of the cities the panelists have worked in where we can measure the time taken to get approval for a simple and a low-cost pop-up versus a multi-million-dollar flyover, which is actually leading to just congestion. And also a question to the panelists, if there are any tools to equip many of us in the room to be better at calculating the ROIs for our road safety investments so that we can make our pitches also as exciting as that of a flyover or a metro project or a car lane.
Maybe Charlotte, Abby?
Okay, I'll jump in. Yeah, it's a good question. You know, pilots, pop-ups versus kind of big infrastructure spending, the kind of infrastructure spending that cities do for big highway projects, for flyovers. I think this, for me, this goes to a systemic question of, and the caveat is to say, yes, there's lots of good examples of more smaller scale piloting and smaller scale projects, particularly when you're looking at active mobility as well, which is so necessary, and also some really good examples of where there's been bank financing as well. There's the example in Peru for of World Bank financing for walking and cycling, and other countries as well. It's a question of, you know, maybe there needs to be a concerted effort, and again with the opportunity of the Morocco Ministerial coming up, to really connect the financing around climate objectives and the financing around safety objectives. And I think too often the danger is that they're seen, you know, as slightly distinct, or they're not connected and integrated in the way that they should be. There's a lot of a job to be done, admittedly, on increasing and focusing the financing on active mobility as well. And it's interesting because there's parallels on both sides. You know, the capacity issues over active mobility in city planning. You know, lots of cities around the world, some of them have very good programs and capacity, but it's mixed. And often there needs to be much more support to be able to deliver the capacity and expertise that's needed across cities for those kinds of projects. And similarly on the safety side as well. And I think there are moves to get this together, but it'd be good to see with the with opportunities like the Marrakesh Ministerial coming up to really connect in the climate financing and the safety financing to really get those co-benefits that we know can be achieved, the health, climate, safety, and actually economic benefits as well when you're looking at active mobility. So there's a big job to be done. There are areas that it is being done, but what's needed is much more systematic approach and much more scale up across the board on that. I hope that kind of answers it to an extent, but it's a question that needs a lot more focus on. Absolutely.
Thank you. Lot, I think you would like to add.
I mean, I think I would just like to add to Avi's point that if when thinking about financing around safety, it's really important to insist that we look at universal access and universal design, because that has a cost. And if you're able to design in a manner, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about a pathway, a pedestrian crossing, or BRT, but if you design with inclusion in mind, it brings down the cost considerably. The cost of retrofitting is extremely high. And I just think we need to recognize that universal access and design is not just good for persons with disabilities, it's good for everybody. It's just better design. So I just wanted to make that point.
Very good point. And Benazir, please.
So I think pilot projects are very good, maybe to show how can we increase the safety in using some specific investments. But also, if you look to the budget of each city in the world, you will see that there is some total amount of infrastructure management. And the idea behind is how can we optimize those investments in a good way, because we have the money is there, and we have not to wait until maybe after this kind of pilot project. And for that, I think we need to have some kind of technical assistance for municipalities and cities to maybe to have the good investment in good way. And this it comes what Minister said about capacity building, which is very, very important, and we have not to miss this way. So.
Very good. Thank you very much, Benazir. And we have one last question from Becky.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Becky Bavinger from Bloomberg Philanthropies, and I have a question for Jacob. So, Jacob, as you know, road injuries are the leading cause of death for people aged 5 to 29. So this is absolutely a crisis for the young people. And you have us all here. We're kind of a captive audience right now. You have a room full of donors and banks and transport experts. What do you want us to do? How can we support the youth to get more involved? What can you advise us? And besides funding, we can talk about giving more funds to youth organizations, but really, like, how can we make sure that the youth have opportunities to design the streets that you're using every day and getting killed on every day?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think it starts off with first a paradigm shift and recognizing that for decades we have been viewing young people as truly the burden, as truly the folks who have been affected by our transportation system, but have been causing, risky behavior and dangerous behaviors, which is true, but instead make that paradigm shift to where we're actually incorporating the voices of young people and transforming our transportation system. And so it's so easy to create a campaign and tell a young person to do something, but instead let's go to them and say, hey, can you co-create this campaign with me? And I actually want to hear your voice instead of telling you what to do. And so I think that paradigm shift, if we can first start that off at a systemic level and incorporate the voices of young people systemically, whether that's through youth advisory boards, whether that's through government, feedback and design input, then ultimately we're doing a service to our young people by ensuring that they're meaningful stakeholders.
Very good. I just have to say thank you so much. Sure, Benazir.
Thank you, Claudia. I want just to say that for youth, we will have also the opportunity to involve them in the global ministerial conference, and we are already in contact with Raquel, and we are preparing one action plan to be implemented during Marrakesh conference. We are also open to NGOs, and we are in contact with the Global Alliance of NGOs. And I have a meeting with my friend Avi in Marrakesh next May, in 8th of May, maybe to see how can we involve also the Global Alliance of NGOs. And the last thing I want to share is after the high-level committee we will have in April 26, we will launch the website maybe for registration. So just to share the information, that to have a look, and you can maybe register yourself, and hope to see all of you there in Marrakesh. Very welcome.
Thank you very much. And that's a great opportunity. All right. So I just want to give some closing remarks and just tell you that the investments that we make matter. I'm going to give you a couple of examples now. In the middle of the pandemic, when we were all strained for resources, the city of Nairobi invested $120 million in a ring road. That ring road in 2022 killed 43 people, the majority of them pedestrians. In 2023, it killed 50 people, again, most of them pedestrians. It's in a dense area where people need to cross that road. So that investment, or this type of investments, cannot continue any longer without having road safety performance indicators. If there is something built in that way that kills that many people or that kill even one people, somebody has to respond and to rethink how we are designing these roads. It's not enough to just say those pedestrians have to walk a long way. We right now know why people are killed, and so we can act proactively. Second, there is a project going on in Latin America. I'm not going to mention the country or the city, but there is a 20 million grant, a 20 million donation that has been given to build bicycle lanes. Those bicycle lanes are going to be built in the middle of the road where right now there are trees and gardens. So a double whack, right? We put the cyclists in the middle of the road where we know is the most dangerous area for a cyclist, and we take all the trees in the moment where our cities are getting harder. Again, as you said, Benacer, we need to have good capacity building, good technical assistance, because in terms of road safety, we need to do it right. Why we need to do it right? Because the bodies that we have, they don't withstand kinetic energy. They don't absorb kinetic energy. They don't absorb speed. So only at 30 kilometers per hour, 17 miles per hour, 10% of us that will be hit will be killed. That is the importance of why we need to design safely. Where the money comes from for road safety. First, we have to be very grateful that philanthropies like Bloomberg Philanthropies or the FIA Foundation came 15 years ago and said, this is a topic that is terrible for humanity and is being neglected for so long. So the initial resources to mobilize, to get decision makers to think and to work for road safety has been very important. We have the multilateral development banks because they have a development agenda and they are focusing increasingly on road safety. We also have the budgets of countries and cities. One of the largest budgets, if not the second after the military budget in every country, is the budget that the transport sector has. That budget has to be implemented with road safety indicators. We cannot have millions pouring into our countries and cities with the same problems that we know from the past. Agendas that are very important right now, like what we are discussing in transforming transportation, climate change. We cannot let climate change go through transport without really having strong indicators of how those investments will impact road safety. Right now, I was talking with Jamie Leather from the Asian Development Bank, and he gave me great news. The Green Climate Fund has put $150 million, and now the Asian Development Bank is matching that with $300 million for non-motorized transport investments in Asia. That is $450 million that will go for pedestrians and for cyclists. Now again, we as a community, as a road safety community, have to make sure that investment is done right and that we are providing a safe infrastructure. It's been really a pleasure, Karina, Charlotte, Jacob, Nashua, Benacer, and Avi, to have you with us today. So please, if you join me to give them an applause, and thank you, everyone. There is a coffee break now that we can enjoy. Thank you.